Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining Ora-Ora Live episode 10. I'm delighted to be able to be here at Doddles and to be interviewing Mr. Alan Lowe. Welcome,
Hi.
Alan.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
But today, here, at Doddles, this is such a special place to host this interview. Not long ago, just a few years ago, I remember coming here for the first time, being really curious what it mean by an art salon, first art salon, art club in Hong Kong, and I was very encouraged because we've never seen something like this before. So maybe to begin with, Alan, can you tell us something about this idea of yours and Yen's?
I guess we came up with the idea of creating a space in Hong Kong where people who are professionally involved in art and people who have an interest in art would come together, eat, drink, socialize, and also learn a little bit about art.
Right.
Which is why we made a point to create a very robust art and exhibition programming that is very much curator-led. So it's not just a few pretty things on the wall, but it's also it's a conversation. It's an ongoing dialogue, discussion. We do film screenings. We do salon chats. So there's a lot of that going on throughout the last 7 years already.
Right.
I guess it's not your traditional white cube kind of space. So it's almost a bit like curating a show in a collector's house. Yes, there are challenges in terms of how do we do these projects in the context of kind of a restaurant environment where a lot of people come in and out of the space. So obviously our staff are trained to take good care of the art, and we're also fortunate enough to have great customers who come in and who are the likes of collectors and people in the auction world and gallerists and patrons who have a certain understanding of art. Of course, we also get a great deal of I suppose other types of people who are previously not exposed to the art world, but even if we can get 2 out of 100 of those, to pick up on the subject and become interested, I think we're already doing the community a service.
So, do you have any ink work in your collection that is not from your dad?
I don't.
Okay.
I don't have ink work.
I haven't
But from time to time, I would loan works from our family collection to display in our home and office. So we do, if we have to talk about curation, domestic curation, we do try to mix in 10-20% of ink into perhaps some of the more contemporary works.
Because I'm very curious about, you mentioned about your dad's influence, and you grew up just having by default lots and lots of works and lots of opportunities to meet these amazing ink artists, and I guess still not able to kind of continue, inspire you to continue with ink, but I want to explore whether this upbringing would kind of build up a taste in your aesthetic or concept that influenced you as a collector.
I do. I'm not opposed to ink as a medium, but I guess what I'm interested to see is for contemporary ink artists to look at just I guess macro, the practice, the thinking, the philosophy.
And you did ask me
how one can sort of
transcend,
try to get out of that. I think a lot of artists get boxed into what is considered ink, or even contemporary. Sometimes I look at contemporary, I'm like, this is not very contemporary.
That's right. You did ask me like how contemporary.
This is ink done in contemporary days, but it's still quite not.
It's still modern ink.
I think it's okay to like have a certain like art history basis, but I guess the main difference between modern and contemporary is perhaps like the how you look at aesthetic or how you value aesthetic is very different in this context of contemporary, and I suppose a lot of ink artists are still, I don't want to say stuck, but quite immersed in the aesthetic.
That's right.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
And I mean, talking to you, this is one thing I really wanted to talk to you about. This, your background.
I don't mean to offend anyone.
No. But it is something that it's a serious topic.
Yeah.
I mean, like somebody like your profile and who is serious in collecting, spending time, effort in helping the arts in general. But then, given your background, you haven't actively kind of continue to collect ink. That's not your problem. That's a situation, and it's something that in general I think like somebody like me who is focusing in this have to think about, like how do we not directly influence our artists, but to kind of enlighten them, to think about these things. Very interesting.
There's also the gallery system, I think, or perhaps I think I guess in the 80s and 90s there used to be dealers who played an important role in kind of building the career of quite a few important ink artists, 20th century ink artists, and it seems like we don't see a great deal of them today. Even if we have to talk about, even if now they become like more historic artists, there's not. If we have to look for like the Hauser of ink, there isn't one.
There isn't one.
Yeah.
There are a few of us here in Hong Kong, but then we spoke about this before. Like having just Hong Kong galleries presenting ink, it's not enough. We do need like galleries, I guess, in China, in Taiwan, and eventually, hopefully, in the West, to be interested and to invest a lot in the time and effort into promoting and to introduce.
And it needs to, which is why if we have to look at it in the international context, then the more we need to think about, institutions and how, from a curatorial standpoint, what is the relevance of ink in this wider context?
Exactly. Like what kind of value do they bring to the museum system and institution? For example. You're talking about this because you have a lot of experience and exposure as an art patron, and as an art, you volunteer a lot of your personal time and your effort in supporting a lot of institutions like the Tate's, Walden, and SF MoMA and Serpentine Galleries, etc. And I want to discuss this concept that you brought when we were preparing this discussion about like experience versus ownership. In a way, you were asking me like, do we actually need to own all this art? Like, how important is experiencing to the public? What are your thoughts on that now? Like, given you're spending your time, so much time on it.
Well, first of all, I think it's I guess it's an honor to be invited to serve on different committees with all these great international institutions. I mean, for me, it's a great learning experience to understand kind of how international art institutes and museums operate, and how they how they achieve their kind of their mission vision to bring their strategy in terms of collecting, but also at the same time how they bring art to the people. I think it's definitely something that is Hong Kong has come a long way, but I think we still have a long way to go. But our next 15-20 years will be super interesting. But I guess it's interesting to see how I think down the road Asia will find its own way, will have its own museum system. But obviously the West, the likes of MoMA or Tate, they've been doing it for generations. So it's still a good model to reference.
How are you? What do you think if this persists? And so I'm curious to ask you. Like, one is like, what are the things that you're seeing is important to make this happen, and how important are our patrons to the art scene in general?
I think Hong Kong will always have like an important role to play. I think it's obviously, yes. I mean, politically, we had some, we had a situation last year that kind of persisted for
a little too long.
A little too long. But in hindsight, I think it's I think the M+ project is still a very important one.
Yes.
And I think when it opens towards end of the year next year, I think it really will redefine the whole Asian art and culture landscape. I think I think a lot of people still don't realize the potential and the importance of it.
The magnitude of the project, I guess.
And I remember like we talked about kind of the millennial generation and how I think we no longer look at the physical ownership as much as I think to a lot of people to a lot of millennials, I think it's no longer I make a good living and so I have to buy like a fancy sports car and I have to buy a house and I have to do, it's like a checkbox of things I have to own in order to be seen as successful. I think success is defined by people who have the ability, change makers. They want to be able to make changes.
That's right.
Positive change.
Change makers and change management. And
they want to become change agents. And I think in the context of art and culture, I think it's to this generation, I think it's much more meaningful, say, to donate money to an institution to acquire an important work rather than themselves owning the work.
Right.
So and I think we're going to see a shift down the road. I think we used to see art patronage mostly in the West, but slowly I think in Asia, I think we're with the millennial generation, it's gonna change.
That's great.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to seeing a lot more of these opportunities for change, and hopefully it is apart from art patron, for normal average people, there are ways that they can make a change too.
Yeah. And people are looking.
I mean, it's very hard.
And I think we're talking about also like the democratization of.
That's right, democratization
of art, because art ultimately is sometimes, or a lot of times, seen as a very elitist.
Yes, you did mention that.
Elitist hobby, or whatever however you see it. And I think, with the shift in the behavior with the younger generation, I think people are looking for an experience rather than physical ownership. Then I think it will make this democratization like much it's going to happen way faster than we think. Yeah. So, thanks for having me.
No, thank you so much, Alan.